Hey guys, in today's video, we're going to be breaking down the psychology, persuasion tactics, and marketing of Brian Johnson, aka Liver King. Now, any CEO who's running $100 million a year company is pretty clued up on persuasion. They know what they're doing. But I've got to be honest with you, I've been watching some of Liver King's content to make this video, to make this analysis, right? And he does some things very, very well that I've not seen other influencers do. In fact, I actually think he's probably world class at a few of these things. So it's been very, very interesting to me. And I am continually surprised at how good some of these influencers are at these persuasion tactics. Let me set the scene a little bit, tell you a little bit about who Liver King is, and then we'll get into the breakdown, the analysis. So this is Liver King's Instagram. He's got 2.4 million followers, and he's got 2.4 million followers for a reason, because of the psychology he uses on his Instagram page. Let's take a little scroll through it and see if you guys can spot what he's actually doing here. So I'm just scrolling through. What do I notice? First of all, this dude who's absolutely yoked out of his tree, super, super jacked, caveman-like beard, lifting weights, eating raw meat. He is, I don't even know how much he's lifting there. That's a lot of weight though. He's got 2 guns. He has his camo top on. He's got his octagon behind him. Hyper masculinity, which is trending right now, right? So it's interesting to a lot of people. It's interesting to a lot of guys. Not only that, he's using the element of novelty as well. So on social media, it's actually very, very hard for us, because we've got TikTok now, we've got Instagram. It's very, very hard for us to sit down and just concentrate on mundane things. Life, as you know it, is pretty mundane. And when you scroll on social media, you want to see something that's interesting, that takes you away from that reality. Liver King knows this, right? So he does all these crazy, crazy things, like having a massive jacked physique and showing it off all the time. He is eating raw meat. It's instantly getting your attention, right? Check this out.
Pulled beef with hard-shelled eggs.
He just eat the shell?
It's crazy. It actually tastes like the delicious pulled beef.
So everything he does, whether it's eating raw meat or even eating cooked food there, he does it with this novel value. And just going back to the social media before, in 2024, we had Ty Lopez, who came out with his Lamborghini, and the advert, you know, here in my garage, right?
Here in my garage, just bought this new Lamborghini here.
The advert went super viral. And the reason why it went viral is because not many people at that stage had seen a Lamborghini. But since that point, Lamborghinis have become super, super common on social media. So what does Tate need to do when it's 2022? We can't drive a Lamborghini anymore because everyone's used to that image. So what does he do now? He says, what color is your Bugatti?
Well, what color is your Bugatti?
And he drives a Bugatti, right? So because us as humans are getting consistent dopamine hits on a day-to-day basis, now to get our attention, we need huge dopamine hits. So when he's just eating basic eggs, he's eating the shell on them as well, because he knows he's gonna get some sort of controversy from it. Bro looks like he's homeless on Fear Factor. Anyone else thinks he hates living like this but doesn't want to lose relevance and money, so carries his Ferrari down. Bro's aging so fast. Is this dude still around? Benefits of eating an eggshell? None. Bro's heart must be giving up soon. So can you see some clues in the comments here that also adds to this novelty factor? When we think about people laughing at us, it's like our worst nightmare, right? If you think about, you know, falling over in public and everyone turning around and laughing at you, you think that you'd never be able to live it down. You might even become a meme. But becoming a meme in marketing is actually very, very powerful. And you can strategically become a meme because everyone's going to take the mick out of you. And what happens then is everyone's taking the mick out of you, but there's a subset of those people who will then continue to listen to your message and then actually like you and then buy from you. Liver King strategically knows that by not admitting that he's on steroids straight away, this is my theory, by not admitting he's on steroids straight away, and he's, you know, recently come out that he is, by eating raw meat, by doing all these controversial things, he is generating this attention and he's willingly becoming a meme so that people spread the word of his brand. When you think about it that way, it's actually kind of genius. And there's a reason, like I said at the start of the video, he does $100 million a year, because he thinks outside the box on these things. And it has this exact desired effect. Just a quick search of Liver King on YouTube brings up horrifying. The Liver King situation is sad. The truth about Liver King lie the fall of YouTube's biggest liar. Now, probably some of the stuff actually did get out of hand a little bit, but this controversial stuff still helps build a brand. Guys, we're living in a time where Jordan Belfort can rip loads of people off in the 80s, go to prison, snitch on all of his team, and then come out and build a successful personal brand. We're living in a time where the ex-president of the United States can have an affair with a porn star and still get a massive, massive following. So there is that saying that even bad attention is actually good attention as well. I don't know, maybe I've just butchered that saying, but you know what I mean, right? So each type of exposed video that gets made about him, it just ends up adding to his personal brand because there's a small following of people who really like his message. Now, what we see there with the novelty, the image, the controversy is actually only 10% of his brand. And if you look into him a little bit further, he's quite a deep character and he does a lot of different persuasion elements on top of that as well. So what we're going to watch next is a clip from the Logan Paul podcast where he's being interviewed, and he does a lot of very subtle things in his answer to Logan Paul's question. Now let's watch it. I want you to see if you can pick out what he actually does here.
What's your real name?
Well, I'll tell you the real name. This is a quick story, okay? Because when I was in New York City and this guy goes, "Oh my God, it's Brian Johnson." Who the fuck is Brian Johnson? I swear to God. And I'm like, let me tell you the story real quick about Brian Johnson. Because every man has this barbarian trapped inside of him right here. Right? And that barbarian wants to come out, but doesn't get the chance to come out a whole lot. This is your primordial, first version of yourself, your wild.
So right at the start of the clip there, he dives straight into his story about what his name is, rather than just actually saying what his name is, but it's to keep the viewer hooked, right? But then he also says, when I was in New York City, someone came up to me and says, "Oh my God, it's Brian Johnson," right? Social proofing himself there, right? He's showing you, even in speech, that he's a popular guy. Guys, all of these top influencers do this sort of stuff. They are very, very good at weaving in sort of persuasion tactics to when they talk. But this, what we're going to see next, is actually really good.
Version before we domesticated ourselves. This is the barbarian inside of you. He only comes out now occasionally in the modern world when you fight for something, maybe in sports, maybe in a life or death situation. My barbarian broke out of that cage and he ate Brian Johnson. That guy's fucking God.
So this is
Did you eat him raw?
You need to get some testicles.
So you see the dynamic in the room here. It's very, very interesting. I believe this was one of the first podcasts that he actually appeared on. Up until this point, he was kind of just this kind of elusive figure that appears on social media who doesn't really, sit down and talk with people. But he sat with Logan Paul, who's very, very famous himself, and Liver King's completely controlling the dynamic here. He's breaking the balls a little bit. He is, making jokes and things. He's jumping into these stories. He's very, very charismatic with it. What else is he doing? Have you picked up on it yet? He's speaking with absolute conviction. He's telling you that Brian Johnson, who used to be Brian Johnson, who's defined as the old version, the version that no one wants to be, right, is now dead and Liver King's took over. And he's saying it with absolute conviction. Pay attention to the tone he's speaking in. Pay attention to how he's controlling the room dynamics as well.
I have a question for this Brian character that no longer exists. How would you speak to Brian to get him to do this? Because you guys had your cubs to protect. So when you have your kids, nothing matters anymore. So you wanted to lead with an example. But somebody who's like a Brian that's not, his kids are not in danger, how do you get him to take that step?
There's two things I would say. Number one is show them, don't tell them. This is the first thing. The second thing I would say is your life already sucks.
So he just said there's two things there, encouraging the viewer to listen on. One, show them, don't tell them. Two, your life already sucks. And then he ends it there. Everyone in the room now needs to hear, including the audience, by the way. You can get a good judge of what the audience is feeling, the people who you can't actually see, the viewers, me and you, by looking at what the interviewers are feeling as well. So straight away, everyone needs to now know, what do you mean by your life sucks? This right here is fantastic.
But you know it. Because, again, you're suffering with depression, with anxiety. You can't have kids. You want to have kids. You have an autoimmune condition. You have all these modern day chronic conditions. I can tell you your life sucks because you know it does, because, again, you hate your job, you hate your family life. You sedate yourself enough to call it your life. So people want something You know, Liver King went on social media 7 months ago, not knowing what was going to happen. And Jake and I were talking about this, that at the end of the day, people pay for value, right? If you're doing what's valuable, they'll pay for it with money or they'll pay for it by following you. And I think by evidence of the primals that are following this way of living, people need this message. People know that they're hurting. So what would I say is I would say, you know that your life sucks and you know that you want to do something about it, but you're...
See how the room got real quiet? Because he starts covering men's issues. And he starts saying it with this conviction. He says, your life already sucks. You know, you're out there, you're suffering with anxiety, with depression, all these things. You want to have kids, but you can't. And you can tell the message is resonating with everyone in the room because they're listening intently to it. And you notice the language he's using, you. He's not saying people, he's saying you, right? In psychology, when you describe something as you rather than as people, it resonates more with the viewer because they feel like the message is them, right? And he's describing their situation and he's describing all these little pain points that he's pulling on here. And he's going to, in a moment, position his solution as the solution to their problems. This is masterful what he does here.
You're too goddamn lazy to do something about it. So I'm gonna make it real easy for you. Start with liver. Just start with liver. And if you can't eat that liver, go take Ancestral Supplements liver. Go take Heart and Soil. Go put a pill down your throat. Try this for a couple of weeks. If you don't feel geometrically better, then go back to suffering. But how much you want to bet this is enough of a lever for somebody to be encouraged to say, oh my God, there's a better life here? There's a better life here because there's so many issues that we have today that are caused by nutrient deficiencies. You know how many kids are taking ADHD medications? A ton. That just have nutrient deficiencies.
I mean, he's not wrong, but what's interesting, I'm listening to him speak here. And I know all the persuasion principles in the book. I've seen very charismatic speakers, you know, speak and present, right? And I can feel myself, I know he's marketing right now, and I know he's using psychology, but I can feel myself nodding along and agreeing and feeling like this guy truly understands me, even though I know he's doing that. So this shows how masterful someone can be actually in conversation. We talked about that high verbal IQ again. He doesn't need to shout or scream like Tate or, you know, hit too hard that you're going to get destroyed by the matrix. But he is doing his own sort of matrix, which is basically the food industry, the health industry is keeping you sick, right? It's not letting you live the life that you want. This, in psychology, is called the contrast principle. So for instance, how the contrast principle works is, if I was to say to you, give me $1,000 and I will give you something back, you'd be like, $1,000 for what? But depending on what I give you depends on whether you see that $1,000 as worthwhile. So for instance, if I said, give me $1,000, I'm gonna give you a chocolate bar back, you'd be like, that's way too expensive, I'm never gonna pay that. But if I said, give me $1,000 and I'm gonna give you a Ferrari back, right? You'd probably empty your bank account, borrow from people to get me that $1,000 because it's well worth it. So value only comes about when it's in contrast to something else, right? But it doesn't just have to be a monetary value here. You can contrast living a really unhealthy life versus living, you know, a super healthy life and feeling really great. You can contrast anxiety, depression, all these low level foods with feeling, you know, great, being really jacked, right? When you have a contrast, it presents more value in one of the other options.
They get on some liver and bone marrow and the stories that moms write in. Like, this is no way to relegate a fucking life, like to medication. You know, so this is what I would say to somebody is, you know something's wrong. Deep down inside, whether you want to admit it or not, you do. And if you don't, you know somebody who's trying to have kids and they can't have kids and they're devastated by it. Like, people are affected in crippling ways. They can't leave their house. They have depression and anxiety that's so severe that they can't get out of bed and they can't leave their house, you know, and so they know that there's something wrong. So this is what I would say to them, is that you deserve a better life, a life that's full of adventure, a life that's worth living. This is why we're here.
You see how he's controlling that room there? This is something that we've not actually seen when we've been breaking down other, you know, influencers and gurus as well. He is demonstrating a core skill here. And the core skill is, can you guess it? It's leadership, right? He's holding the frame. He's laughing when someone cracks a joke. Because these guys are, you know, the Logan Paul crew are all kind of a little bit They try and take you off on tangents and things like this, and he just holds frame. He laughs a little bit, acknowledges the joke, and then he plows through with his story, gets the concentration, gets the attention all on him, whilst using social proof. Somebody asked me in the street, whilst using the contrast principle. Look, this is where, you know, most people are. They are sick, they're anxious, they can't have kids, they're not living the life they want. And where they want to get to is, and he shows himself as the reward, right? Super jacked, super motivated, leader of his people, a masculine man, a person who other people would want to follow and take some sort of inspiration from, right? So a lot of people think that leadership in general is how a drill sergeant is. Super intense, shouting at people, getting them to do, you know, terrible things. Humans have different personalities, and doing that to someone doesn't reach everyone, right? You can also inspire by just using words and showing empathy to the viewer as well. And Liver King is very, very, very good at using empathy and really empathizing with, you know, the current position of the typical man who's probably in their 20s to 30s, right? Listen to what he says here. This is one of his first videos and demonstrates these leadership qualities here. It's got like 500,000 views, this video, and it was from 2 years ago.
So why Barbarian?
We do a decent job at honoring our veterans and those that have paid the ultimate sacrifice so that we can be here today and enjoy the freedoms that we enjoy. But what about their forefathers? And what about our earlier ancestors that came before them? What about the initial evolutionary hunters so that we can have our origin stories that are scattered all throughout the world? What about the price that they paid so that we could be here today? So Barbarian is a time that we test ourselves and we remind ourselves that we're built for strength and we're built for capacity, that we're built to endure physically, emotionally, spiritually, and mentally. It's a pretty badass feeling.
Emotionally, spiritually, mentally. You know, in the masculinity movement, there's actually, nobody really talks about that when it comes to men, like emotions and spirituality and things like that. That is a huge segment of the market. And believe me, there's enough guys who, you know, are more feely rather than thinky. There's good psychology on personalities and everything. I'll get into it in a different video. But he's actually capturing that segment of the market by empathizing with the people who, you know, want to talk about their emotions, who want to talk about the spirituality as well. And he's giving this mission of which he's on to honor the ancestors, you know, who were before the veterans who all fought in the war as well. And what he does here is something very clever as well. So the Barbarian, which this video is called, is one of his workouts which he does. And it's a very, very hard, intense workout. It's about strength and it's about endurance. And he shows himself doing it, right? And he says it's a rite of passage that you need to do to go through life's pains. Watch this bit.
So Barbarian evolved into a rite of passage for my young boys and for any tribesman and tribeswoman that joins one of my ancestral companies, if they so choose. It's a time that they get to test themselves and remind themselves what they're capable of, what's possible, what sort of courage that they have to complete Barbarian. Barbarian can take anywhere from a couple of hours to 6 or 8 hours. Anyone can do it. Anyone can will themselves through it. And when you get through it, you realize not only is this the hardest thing you've ever done, but anything is possible.
See how he's got those leadership qualities again? He's saying this is a rite of passage that anyone can do, and your journey is your own, and the lessons you take from it are your own as well. And you've got him there leading by example, doing this, I think it's like a mile or a few miles walk with all this heavy equipment on while he's dragging a sled. And he's saying people who work at his company, they should go through this. So what do people want to do when they watch a video like this? They think to themselves, you know what, I'm feeling a bit motivated now. I think I want this challenge as well. So you're gonna get other people who are gonna start copying these workouts. It's very, very brilliant stuff that's much more subtle than any of the other psychology and marketing tactics which we've seen anybody else do.
We are getting ready to do Barbarian. So what we're looking at in front of us, 70-pound kettlebells in each hand. We have 120 pounds on top of the sled. We have 70 pounds of weight in the backpack. Number 1, no sitting on the sled. Number 2, this sled behind me has to start over the lip in the garage. And when you're done with all the implements in hand, you have to cross that lip before you are done. You're gonna wanna let the kettlebells down beforehand. But if you do, you just screwed yourself. So make sure that sled gets over the lip. Number 3, the backpack can never come off. You can set the backpack comes off, you're done.
There could be no better day to become a barbarian. This is your rite of passage. Do this for you, do this for your tribe, and do this to honor our ancestors. What do we do?
So you can see here again, like, he speaks naturally in a motivating way. He's naturally a leader of men when it comes to, you know, just even what he was saying right there. He's like, you know, this is for you, this is for your tribe, and this is to honor our ancestors. And what do we do? And then he gets everyone to scream in the background, right? Some people are just naturally good leaders. And I think out of all the people we've watched so far, from Andrew Tate to Iman Gadji to Alex Hormozi, Liver King comes at it from this completely different angle. And he also gives you the firm lessons as well, which is what people need to hear. And it resonates with them, right? But also he does it in a much more strategical way, which is empathizing with the audience. Empathy is a superpower. I actually help a company at the moment. They do over 50 million a year, and their main weapon is empathy, right? I say weapon, you know what I mean? Like, their main psychology that they use in marketing is empathy. It works very, very, very well. And you've got all these qualities like, you know, inspirational, leadership, using the contrast as well, being able to describe a person's situation, empathy, along with the novelty, the social proof. You're creating this recipe for exactly why somebody's doing $100 million a year, right? And you can even see in the comments here, we've got some well-known YouTubers who are saying, you know, you're a beast, came in thinking I'd be hating on this guy, but just to show, don't judge a book by its cover. Great message, great motivator, highly inspirational, keep doing your thing. This is Greg Doucette, who calls everyone out, right? That's like what his channel's about. It's like a call-out channel. But even he has come in and been like, you know what, I thought you were going to be a bit of a dick, right? But actually, you're a pretty cool guy. When you flip the switch on people who are typically opposed to something, that's when you know you're persuasive, right?
Out to the gate, you were like, it was 22 or 24 minutes. I don't know how you made it out there though so quick, because you blew us away. Your cardio and your capacity to go.
Giving him, you know, praise and celebrating that he's done this. Now let's see what he says at the end of this video.
Some people don't make it back. For those that do make it back, boy, do we have a celebration waiting for you. We've been cooking, smoking, barbecuing, prepping, and drinking barbaric drinks along the way to get ready to welcome you back as a person that will never be the same, to celebrate what you've just done, the gift that you've given yourself, the hardest thing that you've ever done, the new potential that you've created in yourself, the new value, the strength that you've realized.
Like, look at this again, straight on the fly. Remember how we said Andrew Tate could, on the fly, create this very persuasive argument? And, you know, he would basically, like, be able to ping pong against a highly skilled interviewer and be able to come out on top and flip the frame and things like this. Liver King can generate a highly empathetic, a highly encouraging message just on the fly as well. So he's equally as skilled in just a separate department, masterful at it.
And we're just laughing and talking and bonding and connecting. There are no phones in sight, and we are just having a great time connecting with nature. Shirts off, under the sun, in the water. After that, we generally head back to the lodge. We do some cold plunging, and then we feast. You're always gonna see people connecting around the table, enjoying the feast, enjoying this rite of passage that has once again connected us and strengthened us.
And he's also using this element of community. Community is very, very powerful stuff. So he's building a community of like-minded people who all think the same, who are all following him as well, using this empathetic message and this leadership to drive them along. It's very, very good stuff. Now, we've covered some of those bits there. I noticed a few odd comments on a different video, and I'm going to show you them right now, and we can, you know, walk through them. So I'm just looking on this video here. It's like one of his most popular videos on his channel. It's from 3 months ago, 2.3 million views. JP Sears, worst ranking in Barbarian Crucible history. So again, he's doing this Barbarian challenge, but look at the comments. The comments may indicate something. These 1.7 million views seem suspicious, don't you think? Sus. Someone being view botting? Botted views, by the way, 1.7 million views with under 300 comments. So somebody's here pointing out that Liver King's view count and engagement count don't actually add up, and that he's likely been, you know, botting his comments and doing all these things to basically hack the algorithm a little bit. Liver King's actually responded there. Let's see what he says. Not at all. But is that true? Now, there's obviously been a bit of controversy around Liver King over the years, so let's just briefly cover this. But that's not really what the video is about, but I think we should just touch on it anyway. It came out recently that he's on steroids. And the controversy comes from that he has been showing this image and talking about health and talking about all these things while he's doing steroids, which is A, arguably one of the most unhealthy things you can do, and B, he has been leading people on the path of health to, you know, be stronger, to fitter and everything. But he's arguably looks so good because of the amount of steroids he pumps into his body. Now, when I first saw Liver King, I've been, you know, in gyms for years now. When I first saw Liver King, for me, it was very, very obvious that he was actually on steroids. But the problem is some people see that as a wrong incentive, right? You are selling supplements based on your image that you haven't even achieved using these supplements. So that's where I believe he's got a lot of lawsuits now. All the lawsuits have actually started to kick in. But here's the question for you. Does that take away from the message that he's trying to deliver? I don't know, to be honest with you. So he has 9 ancestral tenets. And these 9 ancestral tenets are to sleep well, to eat well, to move, to shield from you know, or electromagnetic things such as like Wi-Fi and things like that, to connect with others, to get cold exposure, to get sun exposure, to fight, and to bond as well. Now, in my opinion, that message in itself is actually quite a good message. So has he used this to wrongly manipulate and influence people into, you know, buying his supplements? I don't know, to be honest with you. It's a tough one to decide because he seems to have inspired a lot of people to actually, you know, get themselves better. But then at the same time, he's obviously lied about the steroid use, why he looks the way he looks as well. I think he was very, very successful before he came on social media. He was very, you know, rich and things like this. He had this huge mansion before he even got social media famous. So arguably, he hasn't quite benefited as much as some of the other gurus in terms of, I'm going to pretend I'm this person, which is with steroids, and then sell a supplement as well, which, you know, say that you can look like me if you just take these supplements, and then I'm going to profit off it. Arguably, he's actually made most of his money before he actually came onto social media, which is a little bit different from some of the modern day gurus we've seen, where we've seen that they haven't really started making money until they've told everyone that they're making money and they have the secrets to making money, right? You know what I mean? So, I don't know, that one's up to you guys. What do you think of this? Well, I think it's really interesting because he is an example of how you don't have to use all these hundreds of cognitive biases in every single interview or, you know, strategically position your script like this. He just follows a few simple principles, which is empathize with the viewer, talk about what the viewer's going through, right? Which is what I think he talks about, like what his kid was going through, what he was going through. And then say you could be this instead. And then he gives a few general principles such as sleep, eat, move, you know, the 9 ancestral tenets, which are arguably quite good traits, to be honest with you, so, you know, follow along with. And then if you want to buy his supplements, you can from there. But I'm a bit undecided with it. I feel he is a highly persuasive figure and he's a great example of using leadership and empathy as the best persuasion principles there. But what do you guys think? Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. I hope you enjoyed this video. I know I certainly enjoyed watching it as well, particularly where he ate eggs with shells on. Just did not expect that. So let me know in the comments. I hope you guys are doing awesome and take it easy. See you in the next one.